Welcome to the Coffee Break Show. I'm Vicki Helm. Today we have Neil Elliott with us, and we are going to blow your mind. We are going to teach you the 7 steps to having more love, peace, joy, abundance, and prosperity. We will see you on the Metadime Digital Network in just a second. You're on the Success Secrets for Business, Family, and Life channel. Today, we are going to have an in-depth conversation with someone who has fused spirituality and science in such a way that it can help us do more, have more, and be more, and have more access to ourselves. Neil Elliott, welcome to the Coffee Break Show. I'm excited about having this conversation with you today.
Well, thank you, Vicki. It's a pleasure to be here. And yeah, I'm excited about this as well.
Yeah, first off, I just want to, let's start at the very beginning. I've read your book. It's an interesting story. And I want to talk and say to this people, how did you come to this point? Tell us from the very beginning, how you came about understanding the balance and infusion between spirituality and science, and what happened to you. How did you get here? How did this happen?
Great question. So I'm a professional engineer with an MBA, and I was born in 1960. So in the 90s, I was managing large projects, and I wanted to be more inclusive of people's ideas. And so I picked up, at the time, spiritual books, positive thinking books, Tony Robbins, Dr. Wayne Dyer, those kinds of books. And in the 90s, I spent time studying those, all great authors, all great processes. But fundamentally, I needed to, figure out a way to kind of change my perspectives in life or this program thinking we have in our life. And so I was going through this process. And it didn't really work for me. I learned a lot of good stuff. I was more inclusive with people, but it didn't really change fundamentally how I thought. Mm-hmm. And in 2002, I went into consulting from, employment into consulting. Life becomes about work. Mm-hmm. And work. Don't get paid. And in 2015, so from 2002 to 2015, I slowly drove myself into this really deep and dark, despondent depression. And no one knew I was there. We're all great actors in our environment, right? We wear this facade. We can project whatever we want to family, client, friends.
Sure.
My wife didn't know, my kids didn't know that kind of stuff. And I was 57. And I thought, okay, I'm going to pick up some new books, some science books, some spiritual books, and do this process again and see if I can get out of this funk. It didn't work. So in 2017, our house had been on the market for 5 years. And my wife jumped on a plane to fly to Toronto, Ontario, Canada to visit family. And we were in this little 1-bedroom rental apartment. And I was just miserable. I was done with life. It seemed like no matter what I did, I couldn't get ahead. I wasn't happy. When we traveled and we went to Europe, visiting family, friends, and going to museums and stuff, I was always happy. It was fun. But when I got back to real life, I was just miserable all the time, and I was just totally done with it. And so I sat down at this little kitchen table and planned out my suicide and crafted my suicide note. And I was planning it about 3 months out in the future to ensure my wife would be financially okay, say goodbye to people without them knowing what I was going to do. And about a week prior to that, some information fortuitously came to me, and it promised to liberate me from my thinking if I studied it and followed it. And so I thought, okay, being the engineer, I'll push out my suicide date. I can always pull the trigger, but if I pull that trigger,
for a little bit.
yeah. So I thought, I was looking for any sliver of hope to hang on, right? So, so I thought, okay, well, I'll study this, and if it doesn't work, I can always pull the trigger. And so I studied it, and It was so logical and rational and based in science and just made sense to me. And it bridges this gap between spirituality and science. And so I studied it, and almost a year to the day, I woke up and my depression was entirely gone. I was just full of this inner sense of love and peace and joy. And I felt totally prosperous and abundant, although nothing changed in my external environment.
Interesting.
Everything was the same.
Hmm.
But how I viewed the world, how I thought about the world, what I knew about the world had totally transformed. And 13 months after I started this process, so that'd be late December 2018, I went into two meditations, 2 days apart. And I went into this meditation, go through these higher levels of vibrational frequency. The spiritual energy flowed in through my head, it filled my body, and then just totally enveloped me. Like I felt I was totally bathed in unconditional love. And it's a unconditional love that we can't describe. We don't have the human language to describe it. But I felt non-judged, and I felt totally cradled in this unconditional love. I didn't care what ills and pain my body had. I didn't care what, kind of aches it had. I didn't care what anybody had done to me in the past. I just felt totally supported, and I wanted to stay there forever.
Of
And I
course.
came out of that meditation. 2 days later, I had the exact same meditation. And at
Brilliant.
that point, I knew that what I learned and the process I followed, this new knowledge I gained, the process I followed is our truth. And I wanted to share it with everybody. And I thought, well, I'll get on the rooftops and share this. This is how excited I was about it. And I thought, okay, I'm going to be looked at like an idiot, so I won't do that. And it took me a couple of years to figure out the best way to do it. It's to write a book. So I wrote the book, and in my book, I share the exact process I went through and the material I used and the learnings I gained, and in the hopes that it helps people. That's my goal, is to help people. And I believe firmly that the more of us that learn these things and make this connection back to source, back to divine, God, Yahweh, the Tao, whatever you want to call it,
Yeah.
we will eventually transform this world into a new era of love and peace.
It's
Uh,
so interesting that you're saying that, because the truth really is for me that there's always the personality, which is the physical thing that you take on, where you're born, your hair color, your DNA, the color of your eyes, things that you really have no control over. This is the personality. We're so associated as humans with that personality that we have often forgotten that we are divine beings, and that in our divinity is this everlasting piece of us that, for right now, I'll call soul. And our soul self, in that cradled in that love, is a piece of the manifestation that created the personality that we are right now, along with what other people call karma or whatever. But what's important is the recognition that there's a wholeness of a person, that recognition that we are not just our outer influences or our outer world or outer this, that you went in and you found this inward piece of consciousness that is you. You are consciousness. And when you get to that point where you are identifying and touching that conscious part of you, then suddenly you have the ability to feel and allow love and abundance and all these things through you. And there is a step by step way that you've identified that has you have 7 steps to doing this, and your knowingness somehow inside said, I have to reach as many people as I can. I'm going to write a book. And then when I sit down to write the book, if people understand that there's a bridge from here to there, it's a bridge. It's not a burn the bridge as you get it. It's not about burning the bridge. The bridge is part of the inclusion of the wholeness that everybody seeks. And what it did without changing the world outside was it changed the world inside. And suddenly you had a moment where you were no longer suicidal. Nothing in your life had been changed. You were completely loved. You were completely acknowledged. And nothing had to change except probably your point of view and your level of awareness about who you actually are. What I want to go into is your 7 steps. And I want you to, lead it the way you want to lead it or the way you see it as right now. And why you think it's so valuable for the world right now and how it can help them. How can it help them achieve the kind of love and acceptance and abundance and prosperity and things in life that they want to achieve? I was a lot of
That
questions
was
all at once.
that
Can you
was
answer
that was
them all?
well said, well said, and there were a lot of things in there.
Mhm.
So let me say first off that I agree with all the things that you've just said there, and I'll use different language to describe it, and maybe dig into
Mhm.
a few things.
Sure.
But we'll start off with all of the peace, the joy, the love, the prosperity, the abundance, the security that you are seeking. It's all inside of you.
Mhm.
And what you need to do is you need to understand, you need to gain some new knowledge, understand some fundamental things, and follow a process that allows you to unlock that, to bring it to bear, so to speak. And so let me give an analogy here. So we are, at the time of conception, of fertilization of sperm and ovum, the soul, your past life, your truth, your reality, and we'll get to that. But your soul is impressed with all of its past lives, knowledge, and experiences into this process, this conception process. At the same time, the little I mind of ego is created. The little I mind of ego uses the tools of the universe, electromagnetism, and we'll discuss that a little bit, but uses the tools of the universe to construct your body using life force energy and according to the DNA plan of the sperm and the ovum. And as you grow, it takes 9 months for this body to grow and there's over 50 trillion cells in the body. And as you grow from babyhood to about age 5, you're really just this little sponge and you're absorbing everything in your environment. You're absorbing your parents' attitudes, their religion, their language, their emotions, everything that you're exposed to. You're just absorbing this. At age 5, the mind develops to a point, or the brain develops to a point where the child can start making its own decisions. So it's come in with certain past life experiences and lessons. It starts to shape its personality and hone and hue its personality with what it absorbs from its family. And then at age 5, it starts making its own decisions. So really what we're doing is we're programming our subconscious mind and our unconscious mind during this process.
Mm-hmm.
And the the baby then starts to, or the 5-year-old starts to make its own decisions, goes out, goes to school, learns other things. And as we grow from babyhood to adulthood, we think we're becoming versed in the ways of the world. But really what we're doing is we're shutting our soul off from its connection back to source. We're binding it down with our egoic responses and thinking to life, and binding it down and shutting it off from its connection back to source.
Agreed.
And then as, at whatever lifetime it is, like we come here in, many lifetimes over many, many years to experience and learn the lessons that our soul wants to learn. And we're born in varying genders, varying colors of skin, varying places of origin, different religions, sometimes not religion or not religious, and sometimes, in some specific religion, sometimes wealthy, sometimes poor. All of these things are designed to allow our soul to learn the lessons that it wants to learn through this divinely ordained egoic process that we let take control of our life. In a particular lifetime, in some lifetime, your soul finally wakes up, understands what it's doing to itself,
That's right.
and then begins this process to shed these past egoic thinking and feeling that we've programmed in each lifetime in our subconscious mind. And our goal, our spiritual goal, is to, in whichever lifetime it is, to let our soul gain mastery of our life and be an expression of pure unconditional love. We come from unconditional love. We return to unconditional love. And when your soul gains mastery of that, of your life, and becomes this embodiment of unconditional love, in that lifetime or a future lifetime, when your soul finally gets this mastery and has control of that life, then when it leaves that lifetime, this body, this ephemeral body, returns to dust. Your soul can step into the light, and it will not need to be reincarnated again. And so we come in as, so I'm going to use method acting as an analogy here. So we come in, the little I mind of ego takes control.
Yep.
This is like the method actor. So the method actor, doing a period piece, they will dress the part, eat the part, they'll play the part, whether they're on camera or not, right?
Yeah.
They want to really get into it. And then the director calls action, and they're really into the part. The director calls cut. They come out of it, they high five each other, and they go, "Oh man, you did such a great job. I really felt I was in that piece."
We missed that piece.
Yeah, exactly. We think our ego, our egoic mind, are these things that are solid around our body is our reality.
Yeah.
This is the method actor piece. And we are not our body. Our reality is our soul. This egoic process that we're going through, and what we see as solid and what we see as our body and our reality and believe it's our body is really just this hologram, if you will, or game that we're playing to learn these lessons, soul lessons. And when you can understand this and understand we live in this duality of our reality, which is our soul, which is unconditional love, which is light and unconditional love, and then these egoic responses, you can then understand what you need to do to change your mind consciously to come back to the truth. And then you begin this process.
I want to stop you right there, because what you said was so important. It's so important what you just said. There is a woman that was on like the Today Show or some popular morning news show. And one of the things that happened to her was she had a heart attack, a massive heart attack. And it happened really suddenly, and it threw her out of her body. She said it was like a bullet going out of a gun. She was out of her body so fast. And she had a near-death experience. She had flatlined, and they had to work on her to bring her back. And she said once she got to the other side, it was like there isn't it's not the other side, it's an actual different place. It's a completely different place. But when she shot out of the this reality, she said she felt such relief, and the relief that she felt surrounded, oh my gosh, the paying bills and career drive and all of that, that's a lie. It's not even real. It's part of the dream. And what happens is we believe the dream more than we believe this reality. In fact, we're so detached from the other state of reality that we are a soul and we're having a human experience. We have access to emotions, we have access to thinking, but we are not our thinking or our personality in that kind of sense. And she had a really descriptive way of saying that. And to me, when you were talking about the actor and they had that role and all of a sudden they could high five each other and they're like, yeah, what a great job you did. We don't understand. So much of us are caught in the trap that the acting we're doing is the reality. And in one sense, even now, even as a spiritual being, I often feel like I have one foot in the divine because that's who I am, and one foot as the portraying Vicky Helm in this lifetime, author, speaker, business owner, blah 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 blah, and all the accolades you put after your name or whatever you do. That's the role you're playing inside this, world right now. And then there's divine, nameless person, me, that is, the soul of me. I'm certain I have a name, but right now my mind and my thoughts are identified that I am Vicky Helm. I'm a girl. I do this, I do that. That to me is the first separation between knowing who you actually are. And it doesn't mean that you choose a side where you have to be, you're either awake or you're either conscious or unconscious. Your consciousness. So, in that consciousness, the human soul is consciousness and awareness itself. When you get to the point where you realize that you are consciousness, you're still having I'm still having the experience of Vicky. I'm just not led by the outside. I'm led by my inside. And I want to go and talk about, you talked about, once you get to the point where you have that love and that peace inside you, when you're aware, just awareness of itself, there's a point where your imagination goes to, from what I call, there's lower imagination and higher imagination. And both create. The lower imagination creates everything that's kind of earthbound, and the higher imagination creates a spirituality of you. Like, who do you want to be now in yourself as a wakened spiritual beingness? Because that's what I'm calling you right now. He's aware that he's a soul. He's aware that Neil is his human name, and he's aware that he's having an experience as a engineer, and now a kind of with a spiritual awakening, and the becoming of who you want to be is allowing that soul aspect of you to be out 100% of the time and guiding 100% of the time your life, your conversations, who you are and what you do. Do you get the question I'm asking? Like, how, after you have, how do you to surrender to your new beingness? Because I think part of what happens to people is when they get a moment of wakefulness, there's vastness there. There's not any structure there. There's just vastness. And when you look back at this life where you're in your physical, there's work and jobs and things that make us feel comfortable. And I know for me that sometimes when you make your first trip over into that spiritual beingness, there's fear, because your mind jumps on, is like, where am I? What am I doing? Blah, blah, blah. And how can the soul come up and calm the mind down so that the soul is leading the way, instead of the mind feeling like you abandon it or killed it off, or the ego's not necessary? Or how do we surrender to letting the divine guide, and us knowing that we're part of that? And I mean the whole of us, not there's this section, then this section, then this section, the whole of us. Do you get what I'm asking?
I do, and that's not a short answer. So let's.
That's
I'm going to give you.
We have a few minutes.
So I'm going to give you another analogy. And then we can get to some of the science, because I think for me, I needed the scientific information to actually make this bridge. Mm-hmm. So another analogy is this body is a rented vehicle, and we let our ego program our rented vehicle with all of our experiences, the thing we've learned, all of those things. the past life stuff can come up and color what we do in this lifetime.
That's true.
And in the end, what you want to do is you want to clean all this stuff out, and there's a process for doing that. But so we program this egoic mind, and so you're driving this programmed car that's a self-driving car. You're programmed it, and the ego can still make choices. So your subconscious mind goes, okay, well, I want to do that. And the ego goes, no, I'm going to go this way instead. So the ego's still making choices that it wants to make. Your soul bound in the passenger seat, and it cannot influence what's going on. So it's just being a passenger at this point.
It's
and then every now and then
under.
It's buried. It's bound down in these bondages. And your soul every now and then is saying, no, don't do that. Go this way. And your ego's going, no, go away. And it's making its own choices. And so what we need to do is we need to go through this process where we dissolve these bondages of the ego to allow our ego to actually grab or our soul to grab the ego and say, you sit in the passenger seat and I'm going to drive.
Right. That's right.
And now what I'm going to do as a soul is I'm going to, as I'm driving, I'm going to be continually dealing with all of this stuff that's programmed. So I'm going to have to now get at and dissolve this programming that the ego has done of this self-driving car and reprogram it. Yes. This is not a instant gratification process. This is not a fast food process. You cannot hire somebody to do this for you.
That's
so
right.
This is this inward journey. So the first thing you have to do is you have to understand that to go through this process. Oh, let me back up and say this one thing too, is that as we're going through this process, the ego is still jumping in and doing things. But your soul,
trying to take over every time.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's the journey.
And your soul is kind of, going along and everything's going cool. And then all of a sudden your ego has control. And your goal is to, my ego's winning this one. Like I'm turning where I don't want to be turning. And what your soul has to do is wake up and go, okay, well, we've made that turn. Now I'm down this path I don't want to be on. And I got to bring my presence to this and see if I can extricate myself out of this path the ego has taken me down.
Mm-hmm.
And you got to do that through an expression of love in whatever situation that is. So anyway, so thing I had to do was had to understand and I share all of this in A Higher Road, is I had to understand that everything I think as right or wrong, good or bad, true or false, is really just a belief.
That's right.
That's the first thing I had to understand.
Absolutely.
But it's not just an intellectual understanding. You actually have to really understand that at a really deep level. And then and then when you understand that everything that you believe is just a belief, then you have the opportunity to say, okay, well, then how can I change my beliefs? And I thought that was right. And I thought that was right. There's no right or wrong. There's no good or bad. There's no true or false in this egoic process. There's only perspectives and events. And we let externalities drive our perspectives and our events and our emotional reactions to life and gets us down this path. And so what we need to do is get at that subconscious programming to dissolve that. And in order to do that, first thing I want to do is help people understand what consciousness really is. Mm-hmm. And I'm just going to do a little shortcut here. I won't, in the book, I share things around epigenetics and how our thinking affects our biology, how our thinking can be rewired and how we can grow new brain cells. And so the first thing I'm going to say, because you've said it a couple of times, I'm going to say it a slightly different way, is that we are not matter imbued with consciousness. We are consciousness made visible through the descent of vibrational frequency of electrical particles. Everything that you see, touch, feel, hear, know, object, coffee cup, painting behind you, plant, everything is consciousness made visible.
That's correct.
And we do this in our mind, and we forget who we are. It's this process of forgetting and then coming here to experience and learn these lessons. and then figure out a way when your soul wakes up to get back to its truth and become a divine expression of that truth. Your thinking, you think with electrical impulses in the brain, you feel with magnetic impulses in the nervous system. Every thought that you have is a consciousness plan. Your magnetic impulses and your feeling, whether it's a hateful, vengeful feeling or a loving, kind feeling, magnetizes these thoughts into these blueprints of future events or experiences that will manifest into your life. Everything that comes into your life, you are the creator of every event and every experience that comes into your life. And when you understand these processes and how we use these mechanics of the universe to create what we consider to be our reality here on Earth, these method acting experiences, you can make this conscious decision to choose to do it differently. So when you understand these processes, when you learn this new knowledge, you understand these processes, then you can go through this process to cleanse your consciousness, to rebuild your consciousness, and to come to this awareness of who you really are, your reality, your true self. And then it becomes this ever evolving spiritual awakening and just an ongoing process to continue and to finally become this expression of unconditional love to everyone and everything in your environment.
Oh my gosh. I absolutely, first off, I love the conversation we're having. And I genuinely appreciate the depth by which we're going. And I want to just talk to the people. I know you're driving your car, you're listening, or whatever. And I know he's saying a lot of profound stuff. So here's what I want to say: you can still drive safely. Even with the profoundness, you can listen and pay attention at the same time as we go. I want to talk about the book right now. And I'm going to ask somebody if could you please put the Amazon link, so everybody right now thinking, oh my God, I got to read Higher Road, I got to know what these 7 steps are. I mean, today we're touching a bit of it, but I will tell you this: everybody says they want to achieve, everybody says they want to grow, but what we're talking about today is the primary foundational work that is what is going to create transformation for you. The thing that it doesn't matter how much knowledge you know, it doesn't matter what you know. When you get to the point where you are in your beingness, the true aspect of you, you don't think your way to transformation. Transformation is an action completely of your inner soul that has to be accessed in order for transformation to take place. True in-depth transformation. And here's the thing: there is a way to bridge both science and spirituality, because in my opinion, they're kind of the same thing. They go hand in hand. They are that same thing. But if you want to say to yourself, man, I would love to become more aware, I would love to have more success, I would love to love myself more. In order to love yourself more, you have to actually understand who your self is, who you actually are, in order for that to happen. So what we're doing, Higher Road, 7 steps to love, peace, joy, abundance, and prosperity, is about you unearthing you from all the beliefs and lies and outer influences that you have allowed to smother who you actually are. And what Neil is sharing with us today is how to uncover to that, how to access that, and how to allow that which is actually you, not what you think is you, but what you actually is you, to suddenly arise out of you and be there. And trust me, when that happens, you will automatically transform, and you will automatically be the most powerful you can be the most loving kind you could be. You will be in love with who you are, because you see, you are in love with who you are. What you don't like is who you aren't. being who you aren't, living who you aren't. And this is the power of this level of consciousness. And Robin, would you do me a favor? Get the book on Amazon, put the link in there. If you're driving, you do not have to pull over or try to text and do anything crazy at the same time. If you're listening on iHeartRadio or Pandora, know that in the show notes below, there will be a link to the book so that you can read this book and have access to this. And I will tell you this, I have already written plenty of books. I've made all the success I can make. This is the journey, what he's talking about today. This is the work. This is the real. No matter how much, if you continue your path, no matter what and when, you will reach a point where this is the thing that you have to have access, because everybody says, what's the next level? This is the next level. This is the work. This is the true self. And over here in the link right now, Robin put the link to the book. Here's the link to the book. It looks crazy on the screen, but underneath in the show notes, it just has the book and the picture. It's already in there. Get your copy. Get it now. Make sure that you are implementing the life of your dreams. And the life of your dreams, you can have it when you're actually you. If you're not you, you can't have it. Flipping the script isn't going to work. Transformation is an inside job. It's never, your mind only knows the past. It only thinks and it'll tell you the past. The present moment is always your soul. And in order to cross that bridge, in order to get there, you will benefit the most by having 7 steps. And I want to go into the 7 steps now. Let's just do that, Neil. Let's talk about how you went through it. What's the first thing you did? What's the second? What can they do? And I know that the book is there. After they hear it from you, they can read it and do this transformation as well. And let's talk about that for this part of the conversation, please.
Yeah, absolutely. And before we jump into that, I just add this one thing, is that the ego is a divinely ordained process to create individuality out of the wholeness of its unity for our soul to gain these and learn these lessons. Mm-hmm. And so there's nothing to be condemned or judged around the ego. The ego is this divinely ordained process for us to shape and hone and hew our personalities over many lifetimes. So that when we go back and we're part of this unity of the wholeness, we also have our own individuality in terms of our personalities.
I love that. I just want to say one thing. I see you guys all listening. I see you hopping on. Listen, if you are burning with a question that you want to ask Neil, you're going to have to go to the Facebook group, the Success Secrets for Business, Family, and Life channel. Type in your question and I'll put it up there. I'll go ahead and ask it. But I can see you all there riveted listening. Thank you and welcome to the show. And we're just going to continue the conversation. I just want to say, if you want to ask him a question, I'll open it up. You just type it in there for me.
So, okay. So step 1. So the first thing I had to do is to stretch my understanding of what consciousness was. So for me, I had to come to this understanding that consciousness was not just in my brain and, what I had learned in the past, what I had learned educationally, or what I experienced. Consciousness was actually a part of my entire body. And then I had to understand that, no, consciousness is just not in my brain or my body. It's all around me. Yeah. And so it was a progression of understanding this. So I see consciousness now as this stream of thoughts that go by me. And we do this in a nanosecond. We pick a thought out, we keep it, we look at it, we examine it. If it's consistent with our patterns of thinking that we've programmed in our subconscious mind, we keep it, we store it, we think about it. Now remember, everything you think about will manifest a like experience or like event in your life. And it may be years in the manifestation. And you'll never link with what am I thinking to what am I experiencing, be it an accident, be it a wave of a car, be it whatever it is. So if we take this thought out, it's consistent, we keep it. If we don't like it, we throw it back. If it's not consistent with our patterns of thinking, we throw it back in the stream and away it goes. And so then the second thing I had to learn was, oh, my thinking, what I'm thinking, can affect the expression of a cell. So we either draw health and wellness to our cell or contrary to it, create illnesses. Then I had to learn that that we could actually grow new brain cells.
Yes.
And so then the next thing in this stretching this consciousness is, and I share another author that experienced this near-death experience. And this is an author that was suffering from an aggressive form of cancer over a 4-year period. Her body weight went from a normal body weight down to 75, 90 pounds. She had tumors from her waist to her head, some the size of lemons, and she had these open weeping lesions in her skin. And she fell into a coma. She couldn't lift her head on her own. She required 24 hours by 7 care, and she was on oxygen 24 hours a day. She fell into a coma. They rushed her to the hospital. The admitting physicians told her husband and family she would not make it through the night. 24 hours, she woke up, declared she'd be okay, and within 2 weeks, they couldn't find a trace of cancer in her body. They don't know why, but it is documented in medical records. And as an engineer, I like that. Things that are observed, measured, documented, that's good. And so, but what's important about her book is what she described in this 24-hour period. And she came back with certain messages. We come from love. We return to love. We're not judged after death. She felt like she was becoming a part of everything in the universe. Her concept, with that experience was that consciousness is imbued in everything. Mm-hmm. And you will learn then as you go through these processes, it's actually beyond that. It's we are consciousness. Consciousness is our primary source. And it is of basic impulses that are our basic energy that is two primary impulses that we see as electromagnetism. And we use these moment by moments through our thinking and our feeling to create these events and experiences. So when you learn all of that,
I think that's maybe one of the hardest things for people to understand or accept. It's not that you are your personality, you are consciousness. I always say to myself every morning, I am soul, I am consciousness, and good things are going to happen to me today. I am soul, I am consciousness, and good things are going to happen to me today. And I also know that without trying, without having to do anything, the moment will tell me what's there for me, what I'm supposed to learn from the connections I'm supposed to have. Because the truth is, in this realm, there are 8 billion people on the planet. So the chances of Neil and I meeting is 1 in 8 billion, right? So there it is, one. But yet he's here in this moment. It's so significant that he's here at this time, in this moment, sharing with you such an incredibly divine message that's so based in it. The thing about it is it's based in science. It's based in transformation. This is the man talking about how to actually become what everyone dreams of becoming, what they're paying thousands of dollars to get and do and try to find. And it's simply not out there. It's simply in here. And the moment that we get to this point where the divine is actually moving the conversation, moving this message out into the world, especially in this time right now, this to me is the point where you have to understand that you aren't here listening to this by any accident either. This is part of consciousness talking to you through Neil. This is through the personality of Neil. This is the beauty of knowing that this is when you become consciousness, you are consciousness itself, and having and wielding that level of consciousness and being responsible for it and you and etc. That's what most people don't understand. They want to say, I'm an engineer, I'm the degree I earned, I'm this, I'm that. And this is the belief that's the lie. And what you just said, that has a lot of responsibility to it as well. When you say, I am consciousness, what does that mean? It means whatever you say it means. It becomes whatever you say it. That's why what he was talking about, what you speak and what you think about, those things produce immediate results, even if it's off in the future that you experience this. And talk about a moment of responsibility. I start thinking about, what do I think about? What do I tell myself when I talk? What am I saying? Because it's not the affirmation that you say, it's what you unconsciously say as well that is producing your reality in this moment just as much. And there's so much to unpack here, Neil, in just that statement, and why it's so important to understand that you are a soul, you are consciousness. Your soul is awareness. There's awareness and consciousness. And in those two things, like right now my personality is talking a lot. This is the I of me talking, and the realizations that I'm having as we begin to have the conversation. But when I am silenced in myself and I'm just listening to you, the presence and the bigness of who I actually am can show up in such a gentle way that it's like everyone needs to be present about what you're saying, because this is what's happening on the earth right now in a big way. And there are people who are helping facilitate, like Neil is facilitating those people who are moving from this state of beingness into their true state of beingness. And it's huge. This conversation to me it's bigger than probably any one I've ever had, because it's about becoming who we actually are. And the beauty of that, Neil, is when you talk about this, we haven't even begun to tap the potential of what the world could be like if this and when this transformation actually takes a hold. And in a moment of time, because I don't have the no time, I'm still in this realm of duality. In the moment of time, whether it's 1 year, 5 year, 10 years, this transformation that you are talking about, this is what is the second coming. This is what the hashtag woke is. This is where the consciousness of humanity is rising to. This is it right here. This is the conversation. And these are the people who are around the world writing about it, helping others make that connection in themselves so that transformation into all the happiness everybody wants happens. I love what you just said so much, and there's so much to unpack in that. And I want to continue the conversation, even though there's so much to unpack. I want to go a little bit deeper, because as we go deeper into this, there's a moment where we can allow other people to have the connection with you that I'm expanded already with. I'm really loving this conversation.
You've said a lot, and you said it well.
Thank you.
So we were talking about stretching your consciousness. So let me say this: is I look back now, and I understand that the science books I read before I received this new material, which is in the second step, but the science books I read and then this near-death experience that I read was really what it was doing. It was opening me up to understand and prepare me for the information I was about to read.
Yes.
And you need to come to this information that I share with people like a little child, full of curiosity and wonder. And, non-judgmental, no preconceived notions, and no doubt. And when you read this material, it is so rational and logical and understandable, believable, that your shift in understanding it doesn't happen overnight. It takes time because you are unwinding all of these things
Yeah.
that you have programmed in your subconscious mind, and you are learning these, for lack of a better term, shadow consciousness forms that will penetrate your mind, and you will have these moments of spiritual insight when you least expect it, and you probably won't even recognize that that's what's going on. And it takes a while until you make this connection. And then when you make this connection, it happens slowly, it happens over time, and then you'll have a moment of true understanding. You will come to understand that the new knowledge you've gained, that the process you're following is your truth. And then you start, to begin this whole process of complete cleansing and letting your soul gain mastery of your life, so that you can end that lifetime, where your soul steps out into the light, doesn't need to be reincarnated again. And that's when your real life begins. So,
I love that. I love that, what you said, because a lot of people are out there. And I want to say, what we're talking about is very advanced. And wherever you are in your awakening, you want to be present with where you are. If you're listening to this conversation, it's because you're ready for this conversation. Now, I want you to hear that again. If you're listening to this conversation, it's because you're ready for this conversation to happen, which means you're ready for this transformation to happen. If you're repelled by the conversation, your consciousness is not ready to be in this transition. And you will be whenever you decide to be there. But if you're listening to this right now, know that this conversation is specifically for you to help you make this transition. And I think the best thing you can do is get a copy of A Higher Road. Get that book and read it so that you can, understand where you are in the middle of this process and have some help going through the process. I want to say this, that I know I felt when I was awakening. Sometimes you feel like you're all alone, like you're the only one, like you're going through this. And you're right, this journey is very individuated. It's very individual, this journey, but it doesn't mean you're going through it all alone. And you know how you go to bookstores and you look at a book on a shelf and you're like, I got to read that book. I just don't know why. I got to read it. The cover and the vibration of the book is pulling towards you and you're walking towards that. That is this book right here. And here is Neil's, I don't know, it's dneilelliott.com, the book. dneilelliott.com, the book. You have help right now. Somebody is messaging you. Somebody is actually saying to you, you're listening to this show. This guy knows what he's talking about. And the reason I know he knows what he's talking about is because I can verify my own experience. And this to me isn't validation. I feel very seen right now. I feel like I'm in the presence of a kindred spirit that understands the process by which awakening happens. And here's the thing, the transformation piece is easier than we make it sometimes. We have made awakening so complicated, so convoluted. We have like the belief that we tell a lot of people on this planet is you cannot awaken in one lifetime. It's going to take you hundreds and thousands and thousands and thousands. Well, guess what? You've already lived thousands of lifetimes. That's why you're here right now. Right now, you have earned the opportunity to make this quantum leap in consciousness that has never before been on this planet, ever before in history. It's like all knowledge, both universal knowledge, scholastic knowledge, emotional knowledge, any kind of knowledge you want is here now in this era at the touch of a keyboard strike or lifting a book. This is a very rare opportunity spiritually, never before been on this planet in history. And if you want to make the leap and you know you're here to make the leap, this is why you actually bumped in to this conversation between Neil and I. And what I want to invite you to do is take the next step in your own level of consciousness. Take the next step on your journey. And that next step is exactly what he's talking about in his book. And A Higher Road, you can get it on Amazon. We have the link in the description below. We have his address, his online address, www.dneilelliott.com/the-book. www.d as in David, Neil, common spelling, Neil, Elliott, ELLIOTT.com/the-book. So I want to invite you to stop suffering unnecessarily and take the next step into meeting you, loving you, and understanding that you are soul and consciousness itself, and invite you to have a personality that has access to thinking and access to feelings, but you are not your thinking and your feeling. The important thing to understand about what Neil said today was the ego is a divine thing created so that you have your kind of individuated experience. It's not a bad guy. It's part of the process. And what he's teaching you in this book is the ability to access all of you, not just your thinking you, not just part of you that you want to be. This is one of the most important conversations you can ever have. And I'm going to invite everyone. I want to ask a favor from everyone right now. All of my listeners everywhere, I need this favor from you. I have one favor. I never ask people to share my shows out. Never. I never do it. I'm going to ask you if you would share this particular show out to your audiences everywhere. I want it to spread as far and as wide as we can get this message out, because the more people that understand what we've been talking about today, the more people are less suicidal, the more happy the world becomes, the less violent it becomes. And you can see that there's a bit of chaos running around the world right now. And what I'm going to ask you to do is please share this show out on your Facebook page, on your LinkedIn page, on your share this podcast to friends or whoever you can share it with. Please do that. Neil, I want to say this has been a powerful conversation for me, and I want to just leave you a couple of moments at the end of our show to say, what would you say to the world right now? What do you want them to know? What would you like to share with them before we close out the show today? That's a big question, I know.
Yeah, well, it's yeah. So we could talk for hours, but so there's a number of things. First is like, in order to stand in the light of the truth, you need to be willing to relinquish the shadow of the ego. Yeah. And in order to do that, you need to learn this process. And it's a very logical, rational process if you read the book. But you need to learn this process where you'll learn a meditation where you enter in the silence and the stillness of the mind. And when you do that over time, you have to enter into the truth. And as you go through this process, the truth will reveal itself to you in your mind. And it took me a while to figure out how I could stop all of my thinking in this meditation that I do daily. But I tell you, once you do that and you enter into the silence and stillness, then the divine will enter into you and it will inspire you, and it gives me clear messages about what I should do for the day.
That's right.
Your goal, your mind is a divinely ordained tool to bring our source down through your mind to create everything in your life. When
Mm-hmm.
your ego is in control in these selfish, greedy, denigrating, critical, judgmental notions that we have developed, what we're doing is we're putting out vibrational frequencies so contrary to our truth that we create all of these negative experiences and illnesses and things in our life. And when you understand this and you're conscious of every thought that you have, because you will get this, as Vicky's been talking about, every thought you have, you're going to be totally in attuned, and then you're just going to, you're going to kind of step out of that just subconsciously, and you're going to kind of fall off the track, and all of a sudden you're going to go, I can't believe I just said that, or what am I thinking? And then you're going to work to correct that. This is a process. But when you are so off kilter with our truth, with unconditional love, what you do is you create these negative experiences in your life to burden and wound you till you wake up and understand what it is you're doing to yourself. It's only through lessons of suffering will the journeying soul gain self-knowledge to retain individuality after discarding the ego. And that's what this process is about, is to bring the divine down through your mind, get your will out of the way, let the divine's will be done in you and through you, to be this embodiment of unconditional love to everyone and everything in your experience. And when someone comes to you that, they may be saying something to that your ego reacts, at that point, you can recognize that, oh, there's something here that I need to heal. There's something here that I need to forgive. There's something here that I need to love. And as you heal all of these experiences that come to you and you emit unconditional love, you not only heal yourself, you not only heal them, but you heal yourself. And as you heal yourself, then you start to become the light. And as you become the light, you become this beacon to attract other people to you that are curious and want to know how you got there. And if they are that way, then you share. If they are not accepting of it, if they don't want to know about it, then hold your peace. It's not your purview to push your beliefs onto other people. They will come to it when they're ready.
That's right.
Whether it's this lifetime or another lifetime. And as Vicky said earlier, no matter where you are on your path, you are exactly where you need to be. So do not measure yourself or your spiritual awakening or considered lack of it, because you don't know where you're at. You just think you know where you're at. Don't measure yourself against other people. You are on your path to learn the lessons you need to learn and to have the awakening experience that you need to awaken. But when you're drawn to something, then pick it up, learn it, be curious, and be careful who you follow. So when you pour clean water into porridge, the water takes on the consistency of the porridge. So as pure spiritual knowledge and information flows into a mind, it gets contaminated and takes on the concepts of the human mind, and what that person is speaking may be a little off kilter or not totally accurate. So be very careful about what it is. So the information that I share in my book is not from me. It is from the highest source. It is pure. Your understanding of it will vary and it will grow as you continue to study it. And things that I read, 4 years ago and I read today, I have an entirely different understanding of them.
Yeah, me too. I just want to say thank you for being on the Coffee Break Show. We bring the world's best experts to you every single week. Every single week. Neil Elliott, thank you for being on the Coffee Break Show. I'll see you guys next week, where we are going to have an incredible guest on as well. And I promise nobody gets out of here without listening to the music. I'll see you next week.